Oi, 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 good morning. This is Cody.
Good morning, this is Manuel. Today we have lesson number
Two, I think.
two. Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty early in the morning for us, but let's not forget our
Ah,
tea presentations first. What are you drinking, Cody?
I drink Chinese green tea. Actually, nothing special also. Um, this is how it... can I show it without... I'm not so sure if you see it well enough. I don't want to spill it over my laptop like last time. But yeah, it's not a good tea. I'm out of the good stuff, Manuel. I need to...
Really?
Yeah, I'm in dire situation. Need to get
Yeah.
more material. Like I
Uh,
have some like this one. If I drink it, it's always a bit bitter, no matter how I brew it. So it's not really the best stuff.
yeah, sure. Yeah.
And as my friend always says, it's for grounding. You cannot just always drink good stuff. Sometimes you need to drink the
Yeah.
shitty stuff to
To
know where
value the
you're
good
at.
things, yeah.
I really like his attitude in that. What
Yeah.
are you drinking?
The jasmine tea again, yeah. Yeah.
Ah,
Yeah,
nice.
it's a great one,
Jasmine is
yeah.
always good, man. You
Yeah,
cannot do anything wrong with that.
jasmine is favorite, yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah. So,
Okay.
what are we looking at today? It's lesson number 2, and this is about Gitignore. And today I will just walk you a little bit through the lesson, and will ask questions about it because, yeah, so there will be questions. So it will be a shorter one. So you can see here, Gitignore. The thing is, the first exercise when I did that, and in our review, you complimented me on yeah, including a Gitignore, and actually that
Yeah.
wasn't not actually my doing, because GitHub asks you right away by creating when you're creating the repository, you want a Gitignore, and you want it for what language for, so you can automatically just set it up and have it almost pretty much set up for the use case you have it. So, but actually, what is a Gitignore? So you see here that it is this file starting with a dot gitignore, and in this file you have different directories, files, or also name patterns which you want to ignore when committing or pushing to the Git repository. Stuff you can keep local. And you can see here, for example, PyCache is excluded. And when I think we also talked about that in a lesson prior to this one, that PyCache should never be committed to the repository, right? So
I as
you
this
did that,
the
right?
playing the senior here, and I did that stuff. And I'm like, Konstantin, that's such a. I always love it if you do beginner mistakes yourself again, and you're like, because it's kind of pushing your ego where people are like, oh, I'm a senior developer or something like that. And then in the
Yeah,
end, you find out you're a human as everyone. Don't think
yeah,
you're anything.
yeah. And I
Pay
think
attention at your job, and that's all you can do. But
yeah,
it's no.
and it's perfectly fine to do also stupid mistakes from time to time. So
Yeah, as
I
long as
think
it's not
this,
committing secrets to the repo, I think it's fine.
yeah, that's what I did. All right. So yeah, so PyCache. Actually, why? I think what is PyCache actually? I mean, sort of what I understand is that it is precompiled files that are more near to the machine code like style, which can be executed easily on the CPU.
Yeah, something like that. I mean, Python itself it's text. You're right,
Yes.
and that text is interpreted in the Python, yeah, like machine system, whatever. I don't
Yeah.
know. Python language interpreter is maybe the best description. It's an interpreter, but what it does internally, it converts this text into instructions.
Yeah.
And these instructions kind of have like numbers, you could call them. And these numbers basically are the Python bytecode, it's called. It's still interpreted in such a sense that there's maybe I can show that sometime. There's a big switch block in the Python source code where kind of the operation comes in, Then it checks, okay, this is operation number 14, and then he does this operation,
All right.
That's
All right.
basically how Python internally works. And it's pretty slow parsing the text. So what it then does is simply, once it compiles it does it in this cache file, so it doesn't have to all the time compile it again and again and again. So it's kind of like a speed up. You don't want to commit this really, because it's on the fly generated stuff like that. You never commit.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
It's
It's
otherwise
just too
you have a
much.
ton. The classic is, I don't know if Node.js guys are around a bit here, but JavaScript. But the problem with there is, there's the legendary folder, node modules. And in that you have usually easily 1,000 packages. If you happen not to have that in your Gitignore, God bless you if you try to push that to the repo. Like that is absolute insanity what's going on in there. Like you never want to have this happen. So but it's not the same as here. PyCache is really the cache.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's a little bit about the internals of Python too.
Yeah, I
So
think
it's
that's
basically
interesting.
some people are really mean and say Python is just a C library.
That's one way of looking at it, right?
I really love it. That's a good one because it kind of hits the
Yeah.
spot somewhere.
But how does Python know when to just recache it? Is it like a hashing algorithm where it just looks at the files and if something has changed, then it recaches it, or is it?
I have no clue, but I guess so. I would
Yeah.
also usually stuff like this is done based on hashes.
Right. Okay. Yeah. So PyCache, you should never commit that. So that's one thing. And yeah, then actually what I didn't understand are the next two lines. So it's star.py, but then you have in brackets COD.
I'm not sure even myself what it is. I never encountered these files.
Okay.
So I cannot really say something for it.
Okay.
The only thing I'm sure about is the one below at 7. That's basically when you compile binaries inside of your Python package. NumPy, for example, is of course not written in Python. Like we would be waiting ages to compute eigenvalues or stuff like this in Python pure. So of course that is I did that myself also. It's you write I think part of it is Fortran and C++ combined, and then compiled for your system, and then it's basically put as a shared object file, as always shared object file for Linux. Into your library inside your Python source code, and from there it's loaded. Shared object files are dynamic. Shared object files are kind of like, how to say it, it's not a binary you can execute, but you can load the functions inside and use it. It's a little bit more complex. Also, it differs how it works between Windows and Linux.
Okay.
That gave me a headache too.
Yeah.
So yeah, just that you understand a bit where this is coming from.
Yeah.
I must mention here that these pure shared object files, they usually should not appear. Though, because if you compile some Python extensions, they usually have their ending PyD. So if I can ever encounter PyD, it's just compiled code with a Python API. Though, there are no rules. You can also call it SO and then load it. There's no problem, and do it manually or whatsoever. I'm just saying this is by default in here, I guess, because they don't want any artifacts or something in a pure Python repo.
Yeah.
I mean, there are a lot of more stuff there. Further below, also a lot of files. I don't think we need to go through all of them, but
yeah, sure.
Whatever gets your attention.
Yeah. Right. So from certain file types like the compiled files, you have also maybe some directories you don't want to include in your Git push, and those, for example, as the name suggests, are build files, or something else like distribution, downloads. It's like default folders which you usually don't want to commit. So this is just a standard template, you could say, which you could use if you just create a new GitHub repository. But yeah, you're free to add anything you want in that. So, for example, a file which contains the secrets, right?
Yeah, right.
Yeah, it should be in here. Yeah.
You can show 108, please.
108.
I really love this it's not there. You can click on the file in the repo above.
Oh, yeah. The Gitignore.
Yeah. 108. And there you have your .env.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
You see?
Yeah.
That's why I said it's good practice to use it, because it's by default already recognized in the GitHub system.
Yeah.
And they have it in. So you see, kind of going with these standard solutions, why I always recommend them. It helps you a lot. Maybe we can show that meme later in the video here, but there's a meme which says, I don't always get compliments, but if I get them, it's for following common practices, you know? And that's so utterly bitter true as a software engineer. When people are like, oh, wow, you did a great job there. Then you're like, I don't know, this is just how everyone does it, you know?
Yeah, but it's good to know how everyone does it, because that helps you tremendously. If you don't know what to do and you just go on Stack Overflow and pick the first solution which is on there, which we saw, it's not always the best one. So
yeah, the real problem there is that different tools assume the same standards. So if you kind of go a little bit your own route always, you get punches left and right from time to time.
Yeah.
I had that a few times, and then in the end, I'm always a bit a revolutionary or pirate. I always try to my own stuff.
Yeah.
That's how I learn also, you know. Then if I screw up, I at least know, okay, it was a really silly idea. I could have done it the standard way. So yeah, but it's quite important in that sense that you understand how things work together, because all of these tools, for example, for auto-completion, there is a standard which is called the language server standard, the language server protocol.
Yeah.
And that's pretty cool, because nowadays it doesn't matter what IDE you have, if it's a Visual Studio Code or you use Vim or whatever, because all of them can use this language server behind and have auto-completion.
Yeah, right.
And if you know these nitpicks, you know, and you would design a new editor and you don't know that, you're in deep trouble waters, because doing autocomplete for a language without knowing this interface is horrible.
That's a lot of work, yeah.
Yeah, it's a lot of work. You would really work yourself to death. And that's why it's so important. What I also like, by the way, down here is the Pyre 132. What most people don't know, Pyre is rather unknown. What's more known is MyPy. MyPy is the type checker for Python.
Yeah.
It's kind of the official thing, I would say. Pyre is the Facebook counterpart. I actually used both, and I like Pyre more for type checking.
Okay.
It has also its limits. I pushed it pretty far. I don't know why, but I always end up with situations where I push things too far.
Yeah.
Because when you generate on-the-fly classes and whatever, it's sweating like hell. All of these, you know, MyPy.
Yeah.
But pretty cool tool. Would also note it down. Yeah.
Yeah.
Generally, when you go best practice, I learned that the hard way. When you add a file you want to play with, or where there are secrets inside or environments and stuff, immediately add it to the Gitignore. Don't even think about first trying something out and say I do it later. Don't do that right away, because it always bites you, you know. Add a file. Do I need it? No. Quickly Gitignore and be done with it. But it hurt me also a few times.
Yeah. I think Gitignore should be done first. If you just want to try something out, that's for sure. And I had the same problem. I added it to the Gitignore first. That's what I did right there. But then I think I thought that I didn't need it anymore, but I still left the file there. So I deleted it from the Gitignore. then changed my code, but the file was still there. Then I didn't check the commit, and then I pushed it onto the repo.
Yeah.
So, yeah, stupid mistake, but yeah, definitely.
One last thing I really need to get rid of too is in line 55, for example. There's some translations files or Django underneath and Flask and that stuff.
Okay.
Golden rule also, if you use these default files, kick out what you don't need.
Yeah.
If you're uncertain, maybe you can leave it, but if you're certain you don't need it, kick it out. It's not good practice to just use default stuff all the time and have files in there which you don't need. It's kind of like better practice to always know which options you chose,
Yeah.
So it's also worth looking a little bit in what is this exactly,
Yeah. And only commit the stuff you really need, and not don't commit stuff you don't need, but just commit stuff you need. And so
and you know what it does.
Yeah.
Not just anything, but really that you know what the stuff inside it does.
Yeah.
So definitely reduce this too. If you don't use MyPy, kick out the MyPy section.
Yeah.
If you don't use Pyre, kick out Pyre. If you don't use translations, which I don't know, I never witnessed this. If you don't use translations, kick it out. What the hell? Yeah, it's a few lines gone, makes things more compact and more visible, and that's really good practice too. That the pros, they don't have just random stuff in there. We also have from time to time. It's not like we're professionals are not superhumans or something. We also are in heavy fire, and then we don't perfectly do our job all the time, but compromise on positions like this where we don't care that much, but kind of like over time you still get into it that you say, I don't need this, what is this, out. And so good.
Yeah, you get a feeling also for it, so you have a fast way of doing that correctly.
I mean one thing which gets you pretty smart pretty quickly is just read it. It sounds so stupid. I realized that when I met a senior dev one day, and he didn't really, it's not like he's awesome in what he does in everything. He's pretty good for sure, but if I would nail it down to how good he is, I would never say he's so good in this or something, because he's just generally good. I don't know, it's kind of like he doesn't know everything, but if he works on something, he gives pretty good responses, very clear, very concrete. And I realized that a big part of his skill is just, he really reads it. He reads line for line. If I give him source code or a Gitignore or whatever, he reads every change. He just looks at it. He just reads really every line, and that's it. And then he says, oh, there, you forgot a letter, or this description is just not enough, the user will never understand it. And this is ridiculous because it's no superhuman skill. I mean, everyone can read, but I realized myself that, sometimes I'm too lazy. My ego comes in, and then I just LGTM, PR. This is good, looking good to me. Check, whatever, didn't even read the comments and stuff. And then later I realized, no, this was not good, you had the time. You could have simply read line by line, take the care, make yourself a tea, and just really give this some attention. I definitely would tell everyone also with this Gitignore or whatever, just read once line by line. I mean, the second or third time you encounter this, it's a no-brainer anyway. You know what's in. But definitely, line by line is one of the biggest tricks I learned to become more professional.
Yeah. And I think there's also a lot of knowledge included into standard Gitignore files. So if you didn't know about all that stuff, you read through it, you don't understand it, you look it up, and then you gain knowledge about it. So I think that's also a good thing to do it.
I need to look up now the above at line 3 and 4 you said.
Yeah.
Now I'm nervous. I'm like, Jesus,
Yeah, you cannot know everything about it.
Except that.
At hand, yeah, and that's okay. That's perfectly
absolutely
fine.
Absolutely impossible to know everything. That's just, as a human, it's just, I realize that now in my 30s, no matter how much you shove in, you also forget at the same time. So you need to kind of
that's the
focus
capacity.
also when you're a professional programmer on an area of expertise. What still happens is very odd. You still have this general expertise, which gets better. So if you encounter unknown stuff, it's getting easier still. But if you do very concrete stuff at work, then I still focus on, for example, more back-end than front-end, or I focus less on, or I do also a bit DevOps, but also not entirely, because I know I could go into DevOps deep, but then I would not have time and capacity anymore to kind of work on backends and get my expertise up there. So you really need to, when you're professional later, choose a route. Which way you want to go. Do you want to do front ends? That means websites. Do you want to do back ends, which is, by the way, more Python or general tools or stuff or scripts? Or do you want to go DevOps, kind of maintaining the whole infrastructure as a whole? You know, you can go different routes there. And often you also have a little bit to fulfill all the roles, you know.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it's also
or you can become the Gitignore expert, you know.
Yeah, could be that too.
I don't know much, but I know the Gitignore.
The Gitignore, yeah.
That will not get you through an interview.
No, that's not the case. Yeah. But it's a start. I think it would be in the bigger topic of DevOps, right? Would be included. Yeah, I think that's sort of the thing. Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
I think there's not much more to say. We said already more about Gitignore than is. Usually we can do this in 2 minutes.
Yeah.
But we want to always tell you a bit around it, you know.
Yes.
Because I don't know, there are lessons learned in between the lines. We try to tell you all the time again and again, so it gets into your head.
Yeah, and it's also easier digestible, I think, if you have some stories around it, because everybody can read the boring manual, but you don't. It really, at least in my experience, it never stucks really in your head if you just have boring pages like norms and stuff like that. Just never really stucks then. So
your memory is emotional. Your memory is not rational. People always forget that.
Yeah, we are not computers in this case.
No. That's why if you code, go for feeling, don't go for rationalization. That comes afterwards. People don't realize how the whole thought process actually works. It's quite astonishing if you ever focus on it.
Yeah. All right, then let's pack it up. Thank you for being here. Thank you for watching, and we see each other in the next lesson.
Add your Gitignore. That's important.
Yeah, and read it line by line.
We watch you.
Yeah.
You know, no Gitignore, no happiness. This will be a short week's lesson, just quickly, because of the Gitignore. But don't get too comfortable. We give you a breather. More stuff is coming.
Yeah, can't wait for it. All right, bye guys.
All right, bye.